Jets fans, and welcome to episode number 39 of JetStream Podcast. I am Travis Rubinik. Today is September 1st. We've almost been doing this for a year. Another month. We've been at this for a year, guys. I'm here with Joe Clark and Neil Noonan. How are you guys doing right now?
Not feeling the best, but you're right. It's been a long year. My goodness. 40 episodes almost.
It's insane. Joe almost died this week of a disease.
Yeah, so. No, I'm back to like 90% health right now, so good to go. Time to podcast.
Please don't get me sick, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I was followed by Steve Simmons and blocked by Steve Simmons about 10 minutes later. School's starting this upcoming week for me. Neil, I think Mini U ended this week, eh?
Yep, everything's coming. Like, it's so weird that this week everything kind of changes for a lot of people. You know, like summer ends and school starts, or your job. Some people's jobs start. And oh well, I'm excited. It's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Some big news out of the depending on how you want to classify it as news, it's kind of a continuing story that never really is ever going to disappear in any sports league you follow. But I think a lot of people are taking this one a bit more seriously than they have in the past. If you aren't aware, there was a big breaking of news of potential NHL expansion this week. It was from the province out of the paper/website, The Province out of BC, that apparently the NHL is set to expand sometime soon. Howard Bloom, a publisher from the Sports Business News, then took things a little further and stated the NHL is going to be expanding by 4 teams by 2017, with teams in Quebec City, Toronto, Seattle, and Vegas. I've done... Let's put it this way, it's what, like 2 o'clock right now, almost 2:30? I spent at least like 6 hours this morning scouring the internet and reading as much as I possibly could for this episode, because we're going to go with this expansion stuff and really talk about it. It is the middle of August, or no, it's not.
No, it's
the start of September.
Start of September, yeah.
Jeez, it's flown by. It's not the middle of August anymore.
Just so used to it being the middle of August.
Yeah, exactly. It's the start of September. Things are still a little. It's that awkward time right now where nothing's really going on. It might as well be the middle of August. Yeah. Things that haven't really gotten going yet hockey-wise, but they're close, so it's a little too early to do predictions because teams like the Bruins still have cap situations they need to figure out. We're going to talk about this a lot. I kind of want this episode to be for people where things are at for expansion talks right now. So I'm going to kind of fill everybody in what's going on. So after that 4-team kind of listing by Howard Bloom, Dan Patrick then cited a financial person who was involved with the process and said there will be a team in Vegas by 2016. He flat out said the paperwork's done. It is, as has been reported, it's a done deal. They are going to be there by 2016. So I already kind of question it because there's 2 different years stated there, but whatever. It seems like there is going to be a team in Vegas at some point in time. He also said there's kind of this questioning he brought up as well as whether a team's going to come from expansion or relocation, which again, how do you know it's a done deal if you don't know how a team's going to get there yet? He mentioned the Arizona Coyotes, who do have a 5-year out clause in their deal, could be moving. But he also mentioned
that just will never end, hey?
That's
Coyotes.
Never going to end.
Yeah.
I mean, they have good ownership apparently now, and they keep saying, yes, we're sticking with this. They changed the name to Arizona, blah, 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 but they have that out. So if things aren't turning around, they're going to go.
Yeah.
But one team he also brought up that I was kind of surprised about until I did a bit more digging was the Carolina Hurricanes, apparently. They're looking to sell for a pretty exorbitant amount of money, and have their own ownership issues, and there's stuff going on there as well, so there's a good potential that they could move if they don't figure stuff out. Of course, these rumors were almost instantly shot down by Bill Daly and Gary Bettman. They're very quick on this kind of stuff. They always were. As I'm sure most Jets fans realize when the whole saga of whether or not they were coming back and that whole shenanigans, but at the end it kind of turned out with that whole where there's smoke there's fire, and there's tons of speculation there, so I'm just going to kind of toss this out right off the hop. Do you think the NHL is looking to expand or relocate? Do you think this is going to happen, or not necessarily right away, but do you think it's coming in the near future?
I think any professional sports market should always be looking for new opportunities, right? Whether it be expansion or relocation of a struggling franchise. So, I mean, the NHL would be dumb, and I'm sure they are looking for opportunities, they'd be dumb not to, right? To constantly be on the prowl for, where can we make more money? Because they're a business. So they're obviously looking to do things like that, and they always are. And when stuff like this comes out, I think it's just sort of an indicator that, maybe they're looking a little harder because there's some real possibilities out there. So I can see this happening in the next few years. And maybe not all 4, but, maybe 1, 2, possibly 3, who knows?
The thing that kind of makes me interested is the thought that, and this kind of ties into something else I read that I'll bring up in a second once I make this point, is that there's talks of more expansion within Canada. And I think a lot of people would kind of argue that the Canadian market's getting close to saturated as it is. Like, you have your fans in Canada. People who are hockey fans in Canada are hockey fans in Canada. If you're not a hockey fan in Canada, the odds of you being converted at this point are pretty unlikely. Like, you've either set in the stone that you're not a hockey fan, especially by the time you hit like 20 years old. You kind of know whether or not you're going to be a fan of this league or not. In Canada, I'm saying. In the States, it's kind of a different story because maybe you just haven't been exposed to it, or a team could come. Whereas here, it's everywhere. You're going to be exposed to it, so it's your kind of decision. So I'm kind of surprised that you're talking 2 expansion teams in Canada, which makes me wonder if Rogers maybe knew something about this potential expansion, and maybe that's why they spent so much money on this deal. Especially, we're going to get to this a little bit later when you talk about TVA being involved in that deal, the French broadcasters, and the potential ownership of a team in Quebec is kind of connected to that TVA team. So I'm kind of curious as to how much they really know about what's going on. It's a very interesting situation. Personally, I kind of see expansion coming. I don't know. It's complex. Do you think it would be expansion or relocation? What do you think is kind of the more likely?
Anytime that Bettman comes out and has anything to say about relocation, it's always like, no, we're not relocating. We don't want to relocate. We want to keep teams where they are, blah, blah. Yeah. We saw that with the whole Thrashers and, possibly Coyotes coming to Winnipeg. It was a huge thing for a long time.
And then it was like a last second.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, yep, they're there. Yeah. So, like, they do not want to move franchises. I honestly think the NHL would way rather put a new team somewhere than move a franchise.
Yeah, personally, I do agree with you. I see expansion is more likely of the 2 outcomes.
Yeah.
Although the Hurricanes kind of moving west would really balance things out conference-wise and make things nice and pretty. That's why I've always kind of thought the next team in the NHL is going to either be in Seattle. We talked about this close to a year ago.
Yeah, we've talked about Seattle
whether
before.
It be Seattle or I've always said Kansas City. I'm actually going to bring them up as to why that's probably not likely later on. But there's one huge factor that kind of spells out it's expansion. It'll be expansion. That's money. Yeah. One thing that I think what was his name, Bloom, brought up in this tweet and this explanation is that a 4-team expansion could result in about $1.4 billion in expansion fees, and that's not hockey-related revenue. Yeah. So it's money that goes directly to the owners. The players don't get any share of that. So that's about $45 million for every team to split amongst their owners. And just in this kind of current state with things, you have a long-term CBA done. You have a huge TV deal in Canada. You've got consistently getting bigger and longer-term TV deals in the States, along with their local broadcasters.
And more viewership every year as well.
Exactly. You've got the dollar strong in Canada. It's a good time for them to expand. Yeah. As much as that big expansion dollar amounts could always help them, it's a very comfortable time for the NHL to do this because things aren't going to hit the fan. They can kind of let it happen and then let it soak in for however many years whenever it does get done to see if it's going to work before they deal with and get actual dollar amounts before they go back to the negotiating table with the NHLPA.
Yeah.
So they can kind of soak up as much money as they can and then try to steal more from the players, which is terrible to think of, but that's kind of the business side of things. The thing with expansion, though, is there's always questions that start coming out, especially in this particular case. The more I was kind of reading about it, the more I saw some questions kind of come up that they kind of have to be addressed. If you're looking at 2017, that's not very far away. That's within 2014. That's within 3 years. So you've got 2 NHL seasons, and then all of a sudden you have 4 new teams. So there's benefits and obviously disadvantages to either side. Benefits being, well, Quebec cities could potentially... Again, this is assuming this 4-team thing is what goes on. There's the idea of Quebec City getting a team back. fans in Toronto, if that actually happens, would have another option and more of a chance of affording tickets or seeing a game. Not to mention every Leaf fan, myself included, for the next however many years, you're going to hear hey, Toronto's finally getting a team. Yeah. Stupid, dumbass jokes. You could finally see that kind of potential of tapping into that Pacific Northwest region of the States that you haven't really tapped into. So fans in Seattle aren't going to have to go to Vancouver to see a game. You're also looking at a place in Vegas that I think every single sports organization wants to tap into Vegas and be. I think it's a huge and important factor for whatever league gets into Vegas first. Is the first league is going to be the one that I think ends up doing the best. They're going to be the one that gets the first shot at sponsorships, at corporations taking up tickets, at local businesses taking up tickets. Vegas, for fans in Canada, gives you another option for something to do. If you can't see your team or you're in Saskatchewan and have no team other than WHL teams, it's something to do when you go there.
And flying to Vegas is cheap.
Exactly. For a lot of fans across Canada, it could realistically be a cheaper option for you to fly to Vegas and go see your team in Vegas.
Yeah, actually.
And you've got tons to do, and we'll get to the arena situation and stuff before. So there are a lot of benefits to the NHL expanding to these markets. Yeah. Pretty clear. But there are, like I said, those few points that I kind of want to discuss. It'll be the whole idea. I have 4 different ones that we're going to kind of talk through and see where that takes us and where the discussion kind of goes here. Topic number 1, which I think is kind of the first thought that a lot of current NHL fans, not necessarily those in those 4 markets, are thinking about, but fans of current cities are thinking of, is can the NHL talent pool support 4 more teams? And I'm just going to quickly break down the numbers before I kind of give Joe a chance to really say anything here. Last year, there were 983 players employed by the NHL. And that equates to a little bit under 33 players a team. It's 32.7 players employed per team throughout the year. So you're looking at about 131 to 132 more players who otherwise wouldn't be in the league becoming NHL employees, to say. So you're going to start seeing that trickle-down effect as well, where the AHL might get a little bit diminished. Not that the NHL really has to worry about that, because that's not really their problem. It's the AHL has to sell itself. But you start seeing that trickle-down effect where players from the AHL might start making rosters that otherwise wouldn't make it, as well as the ECHL might suffer a little bit from it. The ECHL would actually be losing a team from Vegas. The WHL is probably losing a couple markets. You're likely stealing some players from Europe that otherwise weren't doing it. So do you think it's going to hamper the NHL's overall product by allowing more players in the league?
No, I think it's an absolute positive on all fronts for all the leagues. The AHL, ECHL, everything. It's giving more players more opportunities. And, I mean, there are thousands of talented hockey players in North America and beyond. So, like, I don't think that there's going to be hampering any of the talent pool at all.
You're not at all afraid of goons? Like, I think, like, we've talked about before how it seems to be the NHL slowly picking away the goons now, and they're not really happy. You're not afraid that out of that, you're going to start seeing a bit more of that influx of these guys again, or at all, or is that just kind of an afterthought?
I think that there's tons of skilled guys still in the NHL that maybe, or in the AHL or ECHL that are maybe being held back because guys in the NHL are fulfilling these roles of, goon or whatever. Yeah. And I think it's just going to be the same as it is in the current NHL if they add new teams, right?
Yeah.
It'll be the same situation, but I think more players will be getting opportunities that aren't. Yeah. So I think it speaks for the NHL, right? Like more players are going to be getting a chance in the NHL, which means more players are going to be getting a chance in the AHL, which means more players are going to be getting a chance in the ECHL. To me, it seems like a positive for all the leagues.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talented hockey players out there who maybe just don't get a shot because of a small thing, and they should get a shot, and this might help.
Yeah. And again, you see players, that whole small concept and stuff like that. I do agree with you. I'm not too concerned about the talent overall pool disappearing. I think there are plenty of guys in the NHL who are extremely undervalued. If you look at the Jets, for example, a guy like TJ Gagliardi, I think and there's plenty of guys, like you said, in the AHL who just, for whatever reason, aren't getting their chance because a Colton Orr is getting in the lineup or something like that. You're also, I think, going to start seeing guys from Europe in European leagues start coming back. Just because players want to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, everybody wants to play in the NHL.
Burmistrov said straight up he wants to win a Stanley Cup. That's why he wants to come back.
Yeah, he wants to play in the NHL. That's his words. That's my dream.
Exactly.
And I think most hockey players feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not certain on this point, but I feel like the KHL is it's not a big threat for the NHL right now for kind of the hockey control of being perceived as the best league, but the KHL is always expanding. And again, to bring in the Steve Dangle podcast, like I always do, he spent a lot of time in the lockout covering the KHL, and one of the points he brought up is the KHL's got a much better chance of expanding into a place like Asia and stuff like that, and then really taking over that side and possibly becoming a threat to the NHL with just the dollar amounts of stuff they can offer. I feel like an expansion in the NHL where you kind of flick that light for a few more really talented Russian players to come over, you kind of start taking away from the KHL a little bit. As much as that draw is, and again, guys like Burmistrov that we talk about, as much as that draw is to play at home, I mean, that hometown guy, the draw of the Stanley Cup, I think, is the big one.
Yeah.
It's where the best players play. As much as we've seen it on the Olympics, Canadian players, American players, North America is just where the best hockey players go to play.
Yeah.
For the most part. So I think that draw, and they're going to be bringing a lot of guys over. I do worry about it a little bit at first, that you're going to have 4 teams that are going to come out of an expansion draft. They're not going to be that good. A lot of current teams are going to be diminished. And again, we're actually going to do our own little expansion draft thing. So you'll kind of see the players that are going to be available. A lot of them are going to be 3rd and 4th line guys taken from teams. You're going to have 4 teams that are basically built up of guys that otherwise are in the bottom of lineups. So you're going to have 4 iffy teams. You're going to have a lot of teams looking to fill those bottom 6 roles.
Yeah.
Likely, or well, more than likely 1 or 2 spots with guys that you're going to kind of question likely at first, or you're going to be rushing prospects. But I think you're going to, in response to that, start seeing more of an emphasis, per se, from these 34 GMs and 34 managers of a team having to rely a lot more on stuff like analytics. And I guess I put analytics and scouting kind of in the same thing, but the emphasis on being good at that is going to become so important with a salary cap and with everything, that you find the good quality 3rd and 4th line guys that you're not going to be able to afford to let goons play.
Like exactly.
The talent pool,
even more so than now,
you have less to choose from because there's 4 other teams that are also out there stealing your players. So you've got to do it better.
Yeah.
And the difference, I personally believe the difference between the best teams and the worst teams will get a little bit larger just because of numbers. But that also is going to put more of an emphasis on being good at what you do.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be a huge issue.
Yeah, no.
Question number 2. Will the NHL ever fix the unbalanced conferences? If you have 4 teams in, right now at that current setup, you have 2 teams going to the west, 2 teams going to the east. The same. You're still unbalanced.
Yeah, the imbalance is still what it is now, just with 2 more teams on either side.
And it just seems silly with the current geography. Like, do you see them? Dumb. What do you think?
I don't know how much the actual administration people and the commissioner and them, how much do they really care about that? I don't think that really bothers them too much, to be honest.
I think right now it doesn't bother them because it's kind of that perception that
it might get fixed.
And it's probably going to piss off of some East teams, but I think there's that perception that the West is better.
Mm-hmm.
So having less teams over there, I think that's kind of balancing things out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
But I think everybody believes it's going to be fixed eventually.
Yeah.
But do you think it's just going to go? Or do you think they might change it up? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they're going to eventually change it, or how they could fix it? I don't see them wanting to realign again.
No, I mean, they just did realignment, and that took how many years in the making to get that just to happen? So
it has to be approved by all these teams.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I can't imagine them wanting to go through what I can only assume is a pretty big headache in getting everyone to agree to another realignment. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they feel it's a big enough issue that, it's worth this time and effort to do the realignment, but I don't know. I don't see them thinking it's as big of an issue as that.
Yeah. Especially if they are going through a realignment as well. I don't know who they move, because Detroit will throw a hissy fit. No. They were so pissed to be in the West in the first place, and they stayed there way longer than they expected.
Yeah.
I don't see Columbus wanting to move. I really don't think realignment's a thing. My kind of thought, and I've kind of taken this from a couple different people who have brought things up, as well as you've got something that Bruce Arthur said as well. But I think this is going to be... I have this gut feeling, just off of, like I said, what people have kind of been saying and tweeting, is that this might honestly be a deliberate leak from the league. They are looking in the future and saying, okay, well, we're going to expand. Let's throw out 4 potential markets that are our 4 best contenders right now, in our opinion, which, again, Seattle, Las Vegas, Toronto, and Quebec City.
Get some seeds planted. See
what the response is. Yeah. We know there's a potential for at least one in Arizona franchise relocating, possibly Florida, and now apparently possibly Carolina. If either of those Eastern teams, even if they don't expand, if either of those Eastern teams go, where can we go? Where out of Vegas and Seattle did we get the biggest response? Where do we think the most realistic place to go right now? Mm-hmm. They've got arenas being built in a few of these places. Where would it make sense for us to go?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an easy comparison. It's like a test market kind of thing where fast food places, I'm sure you guys can relate to that. They'll put a product in one market, see how it does, and if it does well, expand where it's going.
Yeah, throw it all over.
So throw the idea out there. Where are you getting a huge response from? So let's say Seattle out of nowhere. This just blows up. It's all over like headline news. It's a big thing in Seattle. It's everywhere. There's attention. People are interested. People want to know this. Seattle might be, okay, well, let's look at this more and see if this works. I have a feeling that might be where it's going. I don't think they want to realign again. I think I don't know if it's just me, but I have this feeling that they do kind of want to balance things out, make it even, because it looks silly.
Yeah,
it just looks stupid. It's completely unbalanced and all that stuff. It's not fair, and I just think it's a test. And I think you said Bruce Arthur said something.
Yeah, I heard on the reporters Bruce Arthur said that he would find it pretty realistic if maybe they not all 4 places got teams and they just went to Las Vegas, Seattle, evened out those conferences, and then kept Quebec and Toronto's second team as realistic opportunities for possibly relocating if those 2 places don't work out.
Yeah, so kind of like a backup plan.
Yeah, a backup plan, so to speak.
So if one just if Vegas bombs, they just have that option. Then they can be like, hey, we'll go here.
Yeah,
because Vegas is already building an arena.
Yeah.
And then if they do terrible, Quebec, here you go.
Yeah, welcome back. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. So you're not completely disrupting a market that's been there for however long. It's just a couple years, not working.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Exactly.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Again, it's kind of the same concept, right? Where you're testing things out and seeing how it's going. I think that's kind of where it's going. But again, they're very tight-lipped about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all speculation at this point. So who knows? The next question that I kind of want to bring up that I think is kind of important to consider, especially with the way this is coming out, are any of these places actually going to be ready by 2017? Like, that's not very long.
No, it's like you said, it's only two seasons.
Exactly. So I went through and I'm gonna go through here all 4 spots. Joe or Neil, feel free to chime in. Neil, especially when I get to Seattle, because the NBA has a lot of... The NBA coming back to Seattle is a big piece as to whether or not that's going to work, and I'll explain that all in a second. But if you guys have anything you want to chime in and any of this stuff, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of go off of what I've read and what I found out and stuff like that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Quebec City. Arena situation there. There is a $400 million 18,000 seat arena under construction there for a while, and it's expected to open within this year. Don't know who's going to play in that if they don't get an NHL team back. Quebec lost its team, I believe, due to similar situations as the Jets did, with the Canadian dollar just bombing out and just there's not enough corporate sponsorship and blah, 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 blah. But with the Canadian dollar doing better, the Rogers TV deal and all that stuff going on, I have a hard time not seeing something similar to what happened here happening in Quebec. And I want to see Quebec get a team back. Yeah. I want to see the Habs Nordiques rivalry come back and stuff
nuts.
like that.
Yeah.
And kind of aside from the NHL, I'd also like to see the CFL go up to Quebec City and just my extra 2 cents that a lot of people might not give a crap with the CFL, but it's just my thought. I just have a hard time not seeing it working. They do have a couple potential owners already. Both the owner of the TVA channel that I mentioned, the channel that owns the NHL's French broadcasting rights, and its former CEO, who currently chairs the board of Hydro-Quebec, have been linked to possibly owning a team there. They're good. They'll be ready by 2017. If they are one of the markets happening, it'll be ready. So that's probably, in my opinion, the most secure kind of this. If you have a team ready, Quebec City is ready to take it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll work. We'll get to viability in a second, but I think it's a good option to kind of go to. And as much as people hate Bettman, especially in Winnipeg, for him kind of being the head of everything when they left, he also brought them back. And I feel like there's a bit of him that would like, though I'd hope, there's a bit of him that would like to go back to Quebec City and show that this could still work here. And like I said, Canada's a huge hockey market. So it might be a knock against Quebec to go there because you already have viewership from Quebec City. Yeah. You already have people from Quebec City providing dollars to your organization as a whole.
But I also don't think you're going to see any sort of drop in terms of attendance numbers.
It's a pretty safe bet, right? Yeah. You're likely going to be selling out that arena every night. You're going to have happy ownership. Yeah. More dollars coming into the HRR, the hockey-related revenue, and all those sorts of things. Yeah. I think it's pretty much a knockout of the park. Yeah. It's going to happen. Second one we're going to talk about is Seattle. So, Neil, any NBA stuff that you want to chime in here, let me know. If I say something that's completely wrong, let me know, because I was kind of looking at this from the NHL perspective. It's a bit more of a confusing concept as what would go on in Seattle. They currently have no plans for a new arena that it's like, go ahead, we're doing this right now. So if the NHL came back, they'd be playing out of Key Arena if 2017 was the date. Key Arena isn't built for hockey. It wasn't built for hockey. And it would not be a long-term solution. I don't know how many of you guys know, but when the Coyotes first became a thing, they played out of the same arena that the Suns did. And it's kind of a weird setup, kind of similar to what the Barclays Center is going to be when the Islanders move there, where one side is just kind of flat, and you can't seat too many people behind one section in the Barclays Center. In Phoenix, it went up, but the overhang from the upper deck hung over the top of the ice surface.
Weird.
So you couldn't see one of the goals. Oh. And I'm pretty sure it's a similar kind of setup in the Seattle arena right now.
Get some nice cheap tickets up there, probably.
Oh, exactly. They won't sell a bunch of them, and there'll be a bunch of obstructed view seats that would happen, but it's not, you don't want that, right? You want to have an arena where everybody can see, and people are going to come to games and not be pissed off about their view.
Obviously.
They're not going to miss a goal or have to watch a Jumbotron. You want to have the fuller experience, right? So it wouldn't be a long-term solution. And a lot of them getting a new arena does rely on the NBA returning to Seattle. Chris Hansen, I believe, is his name. He's been connected to the building of an arena, but he wants an NBA team first. And there were concerns.
He's like an owner?
Yeah, I think Neil, he wants to be an owner of an NBA team.
Yeah, he's a hedge fund guy from the Bay Area, and he has every intention on owning a team in Seattle.
Okay.
An NBA team.
There were concerns, I know, raised because when Steve Ballmer, who again was connected to Seattle, went and purchased the Clippers, which kind of took a big hit to the pocketbook there, because he was another guy I believe who was connected to wanting to bring a team to Seattle, but he then pounced on the opportunity to buy the Clippers when that whole Sterling thing kind of happened. So I'm not too sure where that leaves the NBA situation. Neil, I don't know if you know where they're kind of sitting on that.
Well, Hansen's still very involved in trying to get basically the plans done for the arena, and I think there's been an environmental review that's been going on for a while, which is what they're waiting for, just so they can buy the land and able to start putting in plans.
Would they start building the arena without a guarantee of an NBA team, or is it going to be
probably
need to be told?
Because you know how there's a big list of NHL teams that we've been talking about, obviously, cities that could go there. The NBA has one, and it's Seattle. It's a matter of when, not like how. So I think they would get building right away, and Steve Ballmer, who we were talking about, who just bought the Clippers, would still love to be part of creating that arena and bringing it to there. So he wants to be involved. And then the thing with Milwaukee that was just sold, worst team in the NBA, got sold for about $550 million. They were bought by two hedge fund managers from New York who also are thinking of whether or not they're going to build a new arena in Milwaukee. And if not, where are they going to move the team? Probably Seattle. Yeah.
Because I've never been a huge NBA guy, and a lot of that stuff that happened with Supersonics happened when I was a lot younger. They were pretty well supported, right? Like
absolutely, yeah.
It was more of an ownership thing that just kind of screwed them over.
It had nothing to do with the city or the fans. They were actually, there's a really good documentary called Sonicsgate that basically goes over how that team was stolen from them. And that's why everyone's just kind of waiting for them to get their team back, because it's a hell of a city. if there's any, like, look at the Seahawks right now.
And even their MLS, like, yeah, we'll talk about this a bit later, but even their MLS team does great. So,
yeah, one of the best, actually.
Yeah. So their fans are ready. It's a great NBA place. There's people with money that want to do it. But the NBA expansion is nowhere near onto the table. So it's going to have to be a relocation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Another name that was kind of tossed out was Don Levin. He's the guy who actually founded the AHL Chicago Wolves, and the Wolves are long seen. They're very comparable to the Moose as a very respected AHL franchise. They were very well run, it was run like an NHL team. He's also been in talks with Seattle. He actually tried to buy the Montreal Canadiens when they were for sale in 2009, I want to say. He put up $500 million for the Habs, but lost out to the Molson family, just barely. So he could afford the expansion fees and all stuff. I think if all the dollar figures right, it's about a $300 million expansion fee, somewhere around there for each team to come in. I think.
It's a bargain.
Oh, yeah. So I also read an article somewhere that Gretzky has been connected to a potential ownership of a Seattle organization. Okay. So Seattle, like Neil said, it's a huge sports market. We'll get to that in a second. 2017 is possible with Key Arena being there, but I feel like the NHL would need more of a guarantee, which if these approvals go through and they're going to build the arena, the NHL franchise would always be the second tenant there, like, until certain things happen. That's the whole point of what's going on. But I feel like if the NHL got security that, yes, you have a place to play, we have good ownership in place that's not going to run this team to the ground, it's a good option. I would fully support a team going to Seattle. Next franchise that we're going to talk about, Toronto 2.0. There have been a fair number of issues getting things going for a second team in Toronto, as great as that market would be. And again, we'll get to viability in a second. There was a planned NHL-ready arena in Markham. I'm sure everyone, TSN, of course, was all over because it's Toronto-based. Arena ready to go in Markham for $325 million, 20,000-seat arena that was shut down by citizens because they were a little bit worried about how much of this was going to go in their local government, who the heck's going to play there. There was no guarantees whatsoever. You would also need any team that went into the Toronto market to be approved by the Leafs because they have... I can't remember what it's called, but they've basically got ownership of that region. You can't just throw whatever you want in their marketplace. So they would need to agree with it. There's actually been the idea of a second team playing out of the Air Canada Centre along with the Leafs. Similar to the Lakers and Clippers kind of situation in LA. Again, a lot of issues in the way with that. Same thing. It's not only going into the Leafs market, but in the Leafs building.
And there's also lots of other stuff that happens in the ACC as well, other than just Leafs.
No, exactly. It would take a lot of planning for stuff like that. You got Toronto Rock playing out of there. The Raptors play out of there. I mean, obviously, Staples Center is a pretty busy arena too, but it would take a lot more planning to come forth. There's been talks, and you also have to add into that equation the fact that entire thing is owned by MLSE. It's the Maple Leaf. It's MLSE Square. It's literally their own little pocket of Toronto. So there's also been talks of another downtown arena, which people say is completely viable to do. Downtown Toronto, it's an obvious place to put it. There's tons of people down there all the time. A lot of money being spent. People wouldn't be afraid to commute to Hamilton. Hamilton's always been the Jim Ball silly issue was a big thing that came up. Hamilton's arena situation is a bit more picky. Copps Coliseum is an old arena. It would only be a short-term option. Being ready for 2017 could be an issue for Toronto, but again, I feel like it's a risk the NHL would be willing to take because they know it's going to be a well-supported team. So I don't know how realistic that date is, but it's an option. You could also see this situation where they play in Hamilton for a couple of years and then move out of Copps Coliseum whenever their next
they get a place built while they're playing somewhere else. It's
Canadian construction, so odds are if they started building now, they wouldn't be ready for at least another 5 years.
No.
So I don't know. We'll see how it goes if that is a realistic situation. Vegas. Like I said earlier, Vegas is the big, intriguing, interesting project for any league that kind of wants to get in there. They have broken ground on a $375 million 28,000 seat arena just off the Las Vegas Strip as a result of a partnership between MGM Resorts and Shoots Entertainment Group. I don't know how to say it. Entertainment Group. I'm just going to call them AEG, who actually own the Kings.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's an arena that's expected to be operational by 2016. So again, that meets their 2017 or even the 2016 date that was thrown out there for being a done deal.
Right.
AEG's chief executive has stated in the past that they would be open to an NHL team coming. They want that.
What would they put there otherwise? Like what would go on in that arena? 22,000.
It's Vegas. Arena. They'll find something.
Yeah, I guess, but
circuses for all.
Yeah, that's true.
There's tons of stuff you can do with an arena, right? Yeah. But and where a place like Vegas where shows going on all the time, they'll find something to go there. Mm-hmm. Could be another concert venue. MGM having a part of it, kind of boxing there, stuff like that. They also said they would be open to an NBA team coming if that ever did kind of surface as an option. The Maloof family, who are the ones who sold the Sacramento Kings, they've also been connected to ownership possibilities in the past for an NHL team in Vegas, actually. So that's kind of all tossed up in the air as well. Vegas, I think, is like I said, it's the one that every kind of league is thought about, but I think everyone's kind of afraid to go there because of the chances of there's so much to do. And I want to talk about this a bit more when we get to the viables part, but 2017 is definitely possible for Vegas. It's 100% able to be ready unless something drastically goes wrong with this arena built, but there's arena there, they have ownership possibilities, it could happen. So I've been talking about this forever now, so I guess fourth question I'll ask is, are these viable markets? Are these realistic places for NHL hockey to come and actually succeed and occur? So we're going to go through all four places again and see if they are viable. I read a very interesting article from 538.com. It's all spelled out, F-I-V-E 38, all spelled out, one word.com, who in the past ran a study to look and estimate the number of avid NHL fans in major markets with the NHL in them and without NHL teams in them. They found some very interesting things and included the fact that markets with less than 300,000 avid hockey fans tended to lose money. So I just want you guys to kind of remember that number as I go through all of this, and they kind of provided their numbers for each of these markets. So I'm going to start with Quebec City. I'll start with the two Canadian teams and kind of go on to the other two markets. So Quebec City, ex-Nordique fans regularly make it known that they're ready to support a team. They show up at Islanders games, they have rallies, they go everywhere.
Right.
I would argue that their fan base fights a lot harder to show the NHL that they're ready to have a team than Winnipeg ever did. I don't know what their ownership group has for talks with Gary Bettman, because we found out after the Jets came back that Chipman had been presenting to Bettman for years and showing him why this would work. I would think anybody who's been connected to the NHL and wants an NHL team coming back is probably doing the same thing. And the reason the Jets got their team is because they were ready to take it right there and then. Like we said, the Atlanta thing kind of came together pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it had to be ready to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were ready to go. They were ready for it to happen. They took on the challenge of it happening. Support for the building was pretty overwhelming. Like, it's getting done.
Yeah.
The comparisons to Winnipeg are obviously never ending with that, just because of the timing they left, the size of the city. And that report from 538 actually stated that Quebec City has around 530,000 avid NHL fans, slightly less than Winnipeg did, but they're still very much in that profitable range for a team. You factor in the new TV deal. I brought up earlier the Canadian dollar is doing better and all those sorts of things. There's security in Quebec as a province that I would think would
that's factor in
as well.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I do think they would be a viable franchise, and personally, I'm wearing a Quebec Nordiques hat. Yes, I want to see this team come back.
For nostalgia's sake, even for just that.
Exactly. You have to kind of feel for the Nordiques. For those of you who don't really remember this, I'm sure a lot of you do. Nordiques fans had to sit through some years of pretty crappy hockey teams and slowly building things up, and then they went to Colorado and won 2 Stanley Cups. That had, as hard as it was for Jets fans to watch their team leave, the Jets weren't doing so well,
and they continued to not do so well.
Yeah. Quebec was brutal, and then they had to watch their team leave and win. That had to be so difficult.
Yeah, it's got sick.
So I want to see Quebec City get a team back. I'm not gonna say I'm certain it'll work, but I'm pretty damn sure it's gonna work in Quebec City. I would personally, I don't know if you've ever been to Quebec City.
No, I haven't.
It's an awesome city. There's tons of just old nostalgic kind of old Canada, the French English sort of stuff there. It's a great city to visit. I want to go and visit it again. I would think it'd be awesome to go and visit again and watch a Nordiques game.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I remember when I was there, I was in like grade 8 when I went, but there was Nordiques stuff everywhere. Every single store had something Nordiques wise. This team is going to be supported.
Sounds like it's a very similar situation to Winnipeg.
Exactly.
Like the Jets stuff was everywhere, from the minute they left to the minute they came back, it never left, and it sounds like they're ready for it.
The kind of situation where when they come back, if they're not called the Nordiques, people will not be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar to the Winnipeg situation.
Exactly. It's hard to not compare the two.
Yeah.
Option number 2 for Canada, Toronto. Is it a viable market? I think that's pretty freaking obvious. They'll do fine. With all of the losing the Leafs have done, they're still very well attended. It's impossible for anybody there to get tickets. Again, bring up the Steve Dangle podcast. You cannot buy tickets to Leaf games. You can't. Yeah. They say multiple times they don't know a single person who has paid for a Leaf ticket because A, it's unaffordable, and B, no one just sells them. You get them through companies and stuff like that. It's impossible to get Leaf tickets. Yeah. It's very, very difficult. This would be a home run for the league. It's by far the safest bet. Fans in Toronto would jump ship. There's no doubt in my mind that some fans would leave. If not immediately, as soon as this other Toronto team started winning, they're gone. They're going to it. They're going to these affordable games. People are going to try to jump on those. The Leafs season ticket waiting list is like 100 years long. So people on that list are going to be trying to get tickets to this other team, if for no other reason than just to see when the Leafs play them. The 538 article actually stated that if they only pulled away 20% of current Leaf fans in the GTA, their fan base would be equal to that of the Blackhawks, the Kings, the Flames, teams that do very, very well and have huge fan bases. They would be a profitable team, and they'd be very well supported. Mm-hmm. It's extremely viable.
Even if they just tapped into a small percentage of the hockey market in Toronto.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to happen. They have like a 5 million avid NHL fans. Yeah. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that almost balances out the fact that they wouldn't necessarily be 100% ready by 2017, that if they could jump all those hurdles, the NHL will do it. And they will put another team in Southern Ontario. If they can, they will, in my opinion. Mm-hmm.
It's almost one of those things where it's going to work no matter what, so you might as well just wait until it's the perfect time.
Exactly. The only tricky part for them waiting for too long is that I don't think they'll build an arena until they know it's going to happen, or at least get all the approvals from the Leafs and be like, okay, this is our set. They'll be this far away, have all that stuff set up, and then as soon as a team is failing and they have nowhere to put them, get that arena built. They'll play in Hamilton. We'll deal with this. This is how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Done. Or they'll sell the team. You can be in Toronto in 3 years. Done. Next one we'll talk about. These next two are obviously the very interesting ones. Seattle. Like we've said before, Seattle's a huge sports town. As a whole, Seattle has a booming economy right now. They're one of the better off cities in the United States. When you look at the Seahawks, you look at the Sounders, you look at how the Supersonics were supported before they left. It's hard to imagine that Seattle would ever just ignore a sports franchise. The Seattle Thunderbirds of the WHL, they averaged over 4,000 people every game. That was 73.5% capacity for a WHL team.
That's pretty dang good.
And I don't know if that's really an indication for stuff, but they have a team that's worked there, and people watch hockey in Seattle. Mm-hmm. The 538 article, though, actually indicated that Seattle contains about 240,000 avid NHL fans, which is less than that profitable margin. But that's where I start having a bit of an issue with that whole situation, because I think bringing a team there changes that a lot. In the fact that, and again, they didn't really break down how they did all this math, whether it was they looked at teams before they got there and how much it jumped. But you have to think, if you put a team there, the NHL fan base as a whole is going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if not immediately, then over
time, it's going to increase.
Couple years, yeah.
If you have a nice arena, if you have proper ownership, you can take a couple years of building your brand and then having a team. Obviously, any expansion franchise isn't going to be good off the hop, but if you sell things properly, it's going to work in the long run. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the Seahawks were bad for a long time, and they still had what was considered the most intimidating fans and the loudest building in the league. So I I would have serious issues, and again, this is another serious issue I had was what Steve Simmons was saying about this whole thing, that Seattle wouldn't work. He is 100% convinced that these NHL markets in the States aren't going to work. And again, Garrett brought it up great right after I saw the Simmons tweet. I saw Garrett's where Canada's saturated. You have so much potential of growth in the States, especially in a place. Seattle was only a few hours away from where the Winter Olympics happened in 2010. You have to think that connection's there somehow. I'd be shocked if it didn't work in Seattle, to my personal thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems like a very good place for any sports team to go.
I don't know why I completely ignored the Mariners, but I don't know how they
Mariners,
do. But I'm sure like they have their whole King feeling. Like the Mariners haven't been very good, and I'm pretty sure they do decently attendance-wise. So I feel like the draw is there.
Yeah.
Especially with the Canucks sucking so much. Like. And again, the interesting marketplace of Vegas. This is probably the toughest sell for people to think of viability reasons. And it's not ridiculous to think so when you look at how poorly Phoenix has done or Arizona has done with the whole desert thing. But then you have to look at San Jose and Anaheim and these teams that do very well. The Kings, like the population's there for them to actually do very, very well. There are a lot of other variables that could either positively or negatively affect Vegas as a franchise. Tourists being a big one. Location of being right off the strip is another one. Again, there being so much to do could be a good or a bad thing. It's going to draw people to the city, but are they actually going to take priority of seeing an NHL team? It's a very iffy kind of market. The 538 article indicated there are only 91,000 avid hockey fans in Las Vegas, which is 40% fewer than the lowest teams currently in the NHL. That's where I start being a little bit concerned as to how much is that the teams here now affect going to actually play into it. When you look at Seattle and 240,000 to 300,000, it's a decent sized number, but it's not impossible to think of, especially with corporations and stuff like that. Vegas, that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
You have to pretty much triple. If not, you have to more than triple, I think. Math, I don't care. Your actual avid hockey fan base to get butts in seats.
Yeah, and the population of Vegas is 100,000 less than Winnipeg. So, I mean, think of that.
You're relying...
I mean, obviously, you got to take into account there's a lot more people coming in and out.
Exactly. You're relying so much on tourists
Yeah.
taking control of things. The one thing that I think would be big for Vegas, though, are all of these casinos and different companies and just big places that would be buying up tickets just to give to people.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, your hotel room wasn't clean? Here, have a couple tickets to go watch our hockey team play. Oh, you're coming to Vegas? Let's throw this into a package for you so you can go see our hockey team play.
Very true.
There's so much potential for corporations to buy up all the seats, then who cares if anyone's there? They're all sold.
Yep.
As crappy of a fan experience as it might be, they're all sold.
Yep.
Something else to do, something else to comp people. There's big potential for it to work, but there's also a huge chance it fails, which is where I'm actually very interested. I didn't know that Bruce Arthur stuff before you said it, which is where I think that actually plays into an option where if we have a backup plan, Toronto's serving perfectly as that backup plan that we've already brought up. It could be worth the risk and then bail out as soon as you need to.
Yeah, and then like you said, there's plenty of other options for that arena. It's not a waste of an arena at all.
Yeah. One thing I do kind of want to bring up to this is actually interesting to think about. Vegas actually is currently home to an ECHL team, the Wranglers. They drew an average attendance of over 4,500 people a game.
It's not bad.
This is the ECHL. Yeah. Like that's a few rankings lower than the NHL.
Decent.
Again, does that indicate anything? Not really. The team's actually not playing this year because this arena is being built, and they're going to be moving to that arena. I should have thought of that when you asked who's actually going to play in that arena.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be playing in that arena when it is built.
I would hope so.
So
that kind of suck. You have a brand new hockey arena there. You're the only hockey team and you can't play in
it. I would love to think that Vegas would work. It would be weird to think about.
It'd be kind of cool at the same time.
It would be cool. Yeah. We've seen the CFL fail horribly in Vegas before. But I personally, I think it'd be a good reason to go to Vegas if you don't have enough already.
Yep.
Something for people who are a little older going to Vegas and don't want to go pay bazillion dollars at their clubs to do. And something to think about.
Yep.
So there are a couple alternatives for expansion or relocation that obviously that I want to address personally. The first of which, if Seattle doesn't work out, I still think that the Pacific Northwest is an interesting kind of thought of where you want to stick a team, because there is kind of a hole on the map there. Portland?
Possibly.
They are actually the second most attended team in the WHL. They have over 7,300 people every game this past season. Obviously, it helps that you have had a pretty good team in the past, but it's still decent. The Portland Winterhawks are they're a very good and well-run and respected WHL franchise. They have the Rose Garden as an arena. It seats over 18,000 people. Microsoft co-owner, I don't know how current this information is, Microsoft co-owner Paul Allen, who currently owns Trailblazers, has money in the Seahawks, and actually has a piece in the Sounders as well, is a potential owner that has been connected to maybe bringing a team to Portland. TSN, Bar Down actually did a little thing, and they wanted people to send in potential jersey thoughts for teams in these expansion things. Portland's one that's always kind of been thrown around. Somebody put together a Portland uniform set that actually looks sick. So go look it up. It's so cool.
Actually, a nice mock-up of a Nordiques one came out too the other day.
Yeah, there's some really cool ones for all these teams. There's actually a lot of fun stuff going on. Just go look at the internet for all this stuff. People have been trying to come up with Vegas team names. I think the funniest one I've seen was the Las Vegas Craps.
The Craps. Nice.
But there's just people are having fun with this, and I like it. Another franchise that could potentially happen, Kansas City. It's one that I've always kind of pushed. They used to have the Scouts. The more I kind of read into it, the more I see issues occurring there. They would fill a hole on the map. Again, you kind of instantly put them in a rivalry with Colorado and stuff. They're in that hole. You've seen Atlanta fail on one side of them. Colorado's still there on the other side of them. They have the Sprint Center, which can hold about 17,500 for hockey. But there hasn't really been any ownership prospects pop up that I've read about or heard about. So that kind of does raise red flags. And you need to sort out a lot of things before you can kind of consider having Kansas City as an option. So that being said, I hope that kind of helps people understand where all this is at and what things are kind of going on, what the thought process is in all of this. I know it's kind of just been me talking and explaining things, but I'm hoping people kind of find that useful and kind of get it wrapped around. And I don't know, sometimes find it a lot easier to hear somebody explain all this than trying to read all these numbers and craziness that goes on. We're going to move on a little bit. A big part of any expansion that happens is obviously an expansion draft. And with that means that you could lose some players.
Saw it in CFL this year?
Yeah, exactly. CFL this year, it could very well and likely will happen in the NHL sometime soon.
Yeah.
So that kind of raises the questions. Who do you protect for the Jets? And who are you going to let go? So Joe and I have both kind of come up with lists of who we want to protect and who we're going to let go. And we're going to explain why we chose who we did. First things first, though, is there's obviously rules to any expansion draft. Now, these rules are based off of the 2000 expansion when the Wild and Columbus came into the league. These might be a little different because it's not 2 teams, it's 4. And there's a bunch of different aspects that might come into it. They might want to kind of go with what the CFL did this time around and make it more realistic for these expansion teams to actually have success. Although you can argue that Ottawa is still not really having great success in the CFL, although the entire Eastern Division sucks. But these are the rules we followed, and this is kind of how we went off it. So I'll explain them all right now. First, you can protect either 1 goaltender, 5 defensemen, and 9 forwards, or 2 goaltenders, 3 defensemen, and 7 forwards. So let's just go off the hop here. Joe, did you protect 1 or 2 goalies?
1 goalie.
Okay, I protect 1 goalie as well. So both of us are going to have 1 goalie, 5 defensemen, and 9 forwards.
Okay.
Since we chose to protect 1 goaltender, there's no experience requirement left for the unprotected one. If we were to select 2 goaltenders, each must have appeared in either 10 NHL games last season or 25 in the last 2 seasons combined. 31 minutes was kind of the cutoff for how much you had to play in a game for it to count. So for those of you kind of wondering, that means Pavlik would have been good for it. It kind of leaves me some questions with Hutch, but I'm not even going to worry about that right now. Every team then needs to make available 1 defenseman who appeared in at least 40 games last season or 70 games in the last 2 seasons, and at least 2 forwards who also meet those requirements. All first and second year pros, as well as unsigned draft choices, are exempt. So that means Scheifele's safe, Trouba's safe, Morrissey's safe, Ehlers is safe. Those guys are all okay. And only 2 players can be picked from one team, can be taken away from any one team. So it kind of changes. I don't know if that really changed any things. So Joe, let's go with your list first. Just list off who it is and then tell us who you left available, and then we'll get to explanations after I tell you who I kept.
Okay, goalie wise, just saved Hutch. To me, it was kind of really the only option. There's not, like, Montoya's gone now, not on contract anymore.
You could protect Pavlik.
You could protect Pavlik, but I mean, even if you're the kind of person who says, hey, Pavlik's really good, you can just look at his numbers and be like, hey, you know what, a smart expansion team probably wouldn't pick him, even though I think he's good. But, you know, I'm just going to leave him out there as bait, even though knowing he's not going to get picked. Okay. You know, either way. But I don't know, to me, like, Hutch seemed like the only option, because other than that, I don't think any of based on those outlines there, I don't think anyone else was even eligible to be protected.
Yeah, it was pretty much just you could protect both of them, I think. I looked at a couple other sample ones and they did protect both, so I think you can protect both, but
I only wanted to do the one goalie anyways.
You only wanted one goalie,
so yeah, protect Hutch. There you go. Yeah. It seemed pretty obvious to me. I protected Enstrom, Bogo, Klitzum, Party, Postma. So that leaves Stewart and Ellerby on the NHL side unprotected. Like the Jets have been doing over the past over last season, Ellerby and Ellerby and Party could have been swapped either way, like the Jets have been doing, one for the other. But I don't know, just kind of like Party more, for no apparent reason. And forwards, I protected Ladd, Little, Wheeler, Frolik, Kane, Perreault, Odell, Bufflin, Gagliardi. So that leaves out Peluso, Wright, Halischuk, Thorburn, Slater. And they're...
Wait, who are your forwards again?
Ladd, Little, Wheeler, Frolik, Kane, Perreault, Odell, Bufflin, Gagliardi.
Okay, who are your unprotected?
Peluso, Wright, Halischuk, Thorburn, Slater.
Okay, keep going.
Do you want me to tell you which ones of those have played the amount of games?
What about Tangradi?
Did I leave him out?
I don't know. Okay, just talk. Go.
Yeah, you're right. I did leave out Tangradi. Okay, well, he's not protected either then. So I didn't want to let any of Ladd, Little, Wheeler, Frolik, or Kane go. Those are sort of those sort of core guys, if you want to say, that were heavily relied on in the past couple seasons. And I want to see what Perreault can do. I think he's going to be a positive for the team, so obviously keep him. Odell has been looking pretty good, so I want to see if he can make a difference playing a full season or most of a season at the NHL level. Bufflin, I actually kind of thought about it. I was like, you know what? Is there really even a point? Because he's, I've talked about it before. They're not playing him D. Might as well, maybe get rid of him. But I mean, I'd like to maybe get something for him. So I protected him for that reason. And then Gagliardi, all the other fourth line guys I said no to. So I figured Gagliardi had sort of the best contract for what he's worth out of those contracts. So I figured, keep him.
How many forwards did you list there?
9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Something's weird with this. Anyways, I don't know. I'm looking at my list and I feel like I have one too few, whatever. Never mind.
Can you count them right now?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't know. I'm trying to think of where I'm messed up in the head here. Anyways, so who are your 3 guys that met your requirements?
I think Peluso meets them and Thorburn meets them.
All right, and Stewart would be your defenseman.
And then Stewart meets the defenseman ones, yeah.
All right, our teams are actually extremely similar, which does surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, me too, actually.
I kept Hutchinson as well. My explanation for letting Pavlik kind of out there is I believe Hutch at replacement level could put up similar numbers. Plus, if he is taken, that rids the Jets of Pavlik's contract. I think getting rid of him is a big step towards the Jets system improving through the whole addition by subtraction, and I figure he's going to get replaced eventually, so you might as well just go with it now.
Yep.
Plus, if another team wants to take him and be worse than the Jets, great with me.
That's awesome, yeah.
Defenseman, I kept, like you, Enstrom, Bogosian, Klitzum, Paul Postma, and Adam Party. Wow. I'm expecting to take some flack for letting Stewart go. He may honestly provide the Jets with some aspects that guys like Postma and Party just can't do. A huge fact as to why I let him available is his contract. Plain and simple, it's his contract.
Yeah, I agree. That was similar to me for Thorburn.
Yeah, exactly.
That contract is just, you got to get rid of that.
It's one of those things where I don't think the Jets would do the same thing, but this is our picks. Yep. So I personally would let Stewart go. He's an easily replaceable guy. Mm-hmm. I just think there's a chance that a guy like Postma could replace him in the lineup. If Stewart's going to be playing your third kind of slotted areas, then fine. Having him locked up for as long as the Jets have him locked up at 30 years old, it's just a huge detriment to me. And I do have Byfuglien saved in my forwards. And I think there kind of opens up your opportunity to consider moving Byfuglien back to defense.
Yeah.
Because it could honestly play in the Jets' favor. You get to keep a couple younger defensemen and then keep a forward who you could move back to D, because Byfuglien, for those of you who are wondering, is listed as forward now on the NHL site, and that's how I'm considering the NHL is going to look at him.
Kind of a sneaky little trick if this actually were to happen by the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. The Jets could actually use this to their advantage. Yeah. This is assuming this happens right now.
Right, of course.
Next year, it's a whole different situation. Yeah. Things could change, but this is how it would be right now. Forwards, I kept Perreault, Wheeler, Kane, Byfuglien, Ladd, Frolik. Oh, that's my problem. I have Ladd on here twice. There you go.
There's your problem.
Little, Odell, and I guess I would fill that in then with Gagliardi.
It's because you love Ladd so much. That's why you have him twice.
Why did I have him twice? I was looking at him, I'm like, how do you have enough to keep Odell and Gagliardi? I was like, this doesn't make sense to me.
I wanted to do that, but I can't.
There we go.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was my big problem. Was like, okay, well, if I have to choose between Odell and Gagliardi, I guess I'll let Gagliardi go because Odell's at that age.
Yeah.
I do want to keep Gagliardi. I'm gonna let Thorburn go because of his contract. I'm gonna let Tangradi go. He puts up good numbers for his position,
for fourth line,
but the Jets don't take advantage of him. And I'd rather have Odell. I'd rather secure Odell because I think he's got a decent future coming ahead of him.
It's easier to replace somebody who puts up decent numbers on the fourth line, especially on a team like the Jets that doesn't use their fourth line that much.
Exactly.
Than it is to replace a prospect or close to what Odell is, basically a prospect.
Exactly. So Stewart, Thorburn, and Tangradi are my Met requirements. Keep in mind right now, you still do have Scheifele. You still have Trouba. Mm-hmm. You still have all your young guys that are coming up. So there's potential to fill holes, and you've opened up some opportunities. Only 2 of these guys are going to get taken.
Not even 2, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be none. Could be 1. Who knows?
Exactly. And this is kind of where you start looking at it and wonder how good these teams are going to be.
Right.
If the likes of the players they're picking from are the Pavlik, Stewarts, Ellerbys, Slaters, Thorburns, Halischuk's, Tangrady's, Pelusos.
You got to hope that the GMs or coaches and scouting staffs of whatever these new expansion franchises are pretty smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One guy I left off my list. I noticed you did too. I don't know if it's maybe just because you bypassed the thought of him. Both of us left Burmistrov off our list.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it. Well, he wasn't on. I had Capke open when I was looking at the lineups, and he wasn't even on there. So
he is technically Jets property,
right?
But he is technically also available to be taken.
Okay.
He is past all those restrictions for exemption and stuff like that.
But it's a possibility that if you save him, he still doesn't even come back and play for the Jets.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of why I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a save on him.
It seems kind of wasteful.
I also wonder if a team is going to take that chance on staying him away. Because again, two guys gone. I was kind of playing with the numbers there. 2 guys are gone. Do I take that chance? And maybe a lot of other teams are thinking the same thing the Jets do. Of these 4 guys that are coming, of these 4 teams that are picking him, maybe the same thing. He might not be coming back. He's a selfish guy. Didn't want to take his role. We're going to say no to him and maybe take a heart and grit guy like Stewart.
Right.
I also wonder if it's just other teams might be desperate to take a guy with experience starting ability.
Yep.
Where Pavlik might get snagged. So right there, you've got your 2 guys that are taken. So I would be willing to take the risk of someone snagging Burmistrov. You've already basically lost him for nothing as it is, so exactly. You're not really losing him twice.
And if this situation comes up where an expansion draft does happen, it's as simple as just, maybe it's not really this simple, but this could be sort of a catalyst for picking up the phone and being like, hey, Burmistrov, where's your head at? Yeah. Are you going to come back here? Because if you are, we'll protect you. Yeah. And you can come sign for us. Exactly. And then there you go. Click.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, again, moving into next year where Burmistrov is more available, I think it changes things a little bit, and where he's possibly signing a deal with the Jets or getting traded, things can change in a year. So
right.
It changes the whole dynamic. But yeah, my whole reasons behind it is I think it just gave a chance for the Jets to maybe get rid of a couple of contracts. I think this would actually be beneficial for the Jets. A team like the Kings or something like that, they're the ones that are going to be really pissed because their good depth guys are going to get plucked away.
Right.
But yeah, you're not looking at these teams getting fantastic players. And odds are, again, with there being 4 teams, you're probably losing a max of 4 guys, which again makes things even more picky. But
plus, what are the chances of all 4 teams coming in the same year? Right, so you might have 2 years straight of expansion drafts.
Yeah, it was similar to the Power. I think it was 98. There was the first expansion draft, and then 2000 you had the other one, and then teams like Nashville and totally blanking. Who was the other expansion team that year? They were, or I think it was like 98, 99. Anyways, they were protected from the expansion draft as a whole because they were just new.
They just got there. To be a little bit harsh.
Yeah, you're not going to pick teams off of teams that were already picked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how things were going to work for our expansion draft things. Let us know what you guys think. Who would you pick? Do you think keeping Burmistrov would be, or letting Burmistrov be available would be a good choice, a bad choice? Do you think that potential of a team is going to snag him? We want to hear from you guys what you think. Are we complete idiots for both leaving Mark Stewart off? Do you think he's provides too much of a component to the Jets locker room? Do you think some of these guys... Another interesting aspect that we never really discussed is whether or not these lists become available to people. Are these players going to know they were left off the list? That kind of changes your dynamic completely. Yeah. It's kind of a weird thought and a weird concept you have to grasp your head around, because this really... The expansion kind of really shows the business side of things.
Oh, yeah.
I prefer, honestly, looking at this side of the business side rather than contracts and stuff. As important as contracts and whatnot are, I think a lot of people in Winnipeg would agree that this expansion talk is kind of something that we're used to. Mm-hmm. And I'm always fascinated by the way these decisions are made and stuff like that. Actually, in grade 12, one of our English classes, you had to come up with a magazine, and I did my entire thing on the potential of the Jets coming back. So I did basically what I did today and just went through the entire scope of things, like where the arena is capable, is it a viable market, what teams would be available, and all that kind of stuff. Where's the ownership coming from, and all that kind of stuff. And I did that for the Jets. I've always found this stuff kind of fascinating and how it works, and just knowing that and hearing from all the stuff we've heard from the Jets coming back, all those background deals that are consistently kind of being talked about, the ideas that are going on, and just the concepts and stuff that are kind of going into every expansion. People forget that it's just like a business. It is a business, and it's just a weird kind of apparently in the NHL, once every 10 to 15 year thing that rears its head and kind of gives fans something else and different to talk about. We're going to wrap up our expansion talk there. Again, if you have questions, ask. I'd love to explain things more to you guys. If Neil, if Joe, would love to. I'm sure if you're in the NBA, Neil will talk about expansion stuff to you. He said he kind of got into reading about some of this stuff and found it kind of interesting. So if you're more of an NBA type, Rowan, if you're listening, chat with Neil as well. But we're going to move on now to the good old Jets worst case scenario bracket.
Yeah.
Round 1 is over. We're on to round 2. We've got our winners here. We're going to go through each of the last matchups, who won, talk about some of your guys' comments, and then we're going to tee up our next couple rounds.
Big shout out and thanks to everybody who voted. That was
good
awesome.
Results. We had some awesome feedback from you guys. A little bit negative stuff here and there, but also some good stuff. Apparently, I was very wrong on a couple of my opinions for the general populace. But one thing I do want to kind of clear up before we kind of go on here, some people were kind of questioning whether or not they were supposed to talk about what was the realistic option. We don't care about realism right now. We want to know what you guys think would be absolute worst if it did occur. I don't think that really played into any of the results because they were pretty one-sided on most cases. But yeah, this is what would be the worst thing if it did happen, not what you think would be the most realistic thing to happen to the Jets. Because let's be honest, finishing right outside of the playoffs and losing for a league for nothing are two very realistic possibilities.
Big time.
Whereas extending Chevy is probably unrealistic completely and would still be a terrible thing to happen. So let's go through them all. Talking about round 1 first, where we had... Internet's being very slow right now, even though I had it open. Where we had a good year for Pavlik taking on trading Evander Kane, and what I thought was going to go through like no other in Pavlik having a good year was shut down quite substantially by everybody, where trading Evander Kane had 70% of the votes.
Wow.
And absolutely demolished a good year from Pavlik. My thought process behind all of that, and I think what kind of got some people stuck, was it wasn't going to be a sustained kind of thing from Pavlik. It was going to be one good year, and then he drops back down. Where I think a lot of people were kind of taking it as how the hell is this at all bad? How is a guy playing good a bad thing? My perspective was him playing good is possibly not going to be good enough for what he provides for the Jets to make the playoffs. which could then play into them finishing right outside of the playoffs, could again push the Chevy to that point where he's making dumb decisions, where you keep Frolik at the deadline instead of moving him and then possibly losing him, where you're kind of starting reinstituting some faith into Pavlik, and he's not going to leave. He's stuck here. They're going to give him another year to kind of try it again, see if this is going to happen. Yeah. You're setting back Hutch. You're setting back your development. If he has a bad year, then again, people are going to ask, well, what about that one good year? Maybe that's who he really is. And I feel like it would just be this cascade of bad decisions on top of bad decisions and just lead to nothing good. But I guess a lot of people did not agree with me. And I did agree with Joe's thoughts and trading Evander Kane being bad. I'm not going to say trading Evander Kane would be a good thing, because it wouldn't be.
No.
There are some really interesting points brought up by people, though, on this Kane-Pavlik debate. Kristen Ablett emailed us, and she brought up the point that if there would be absolutely no chance, she is from Toronto, there'd be no chance of picking up Reimer on a super friendly contract if Pav does well. It kind of brings, again, that argument the Jets wouldn't be looking to improve in that position anymore. They just kind of say, okay, we're good, and just forget it. Which was kind of refuted on the other side of a couple people on Arctic Ice's comments. BC Jet said that he doesn't think Chevy would actually commit any more huge dollars or term to Pavlik. And he actually brought up a really interesting point that Chevy has two of his guys that he's brought into the organization, coming through the system right now to challenge Pavlik, and he thinks that they would sign for way cheaper, which I completely agree. They would probably sign for way cheaper, and Chevy is going to be looking potentially at that point now. This is kind of my expanding on his thought. Chevy's going to be at that point looking to kind of leave his mark with his team, and sticking with a goalie that hasn't done much and wasn't brought in by you, was just kind of forced upon you, even though you did re-sign him, isn't you leaving a mark. Yeah. It's you sticking with what's not working in the past, and I would hope Chevy's not that dumb. Shelter on the Arctic, a guy with his name on Arctic Guys is Shelter, brought up that a good year from Pavlik, while it may increase his asking price for a contract, it's also going to increase his trade value.
Yep, it's very true.
So you've got the potential then of maybe even offloading Pavlik and actually getting something back from him, which would be fantastic, because at this point you're not getting anything from the guy. It's more of a, we'll give you this, and we'll also give you this to neglect you having to take on this contract for this terrible goalie. So I thought that was a very interesting point. A lot of the Kane arguments that were brought up are very similar to Joe's, where you're losing Kane.
Yeah.
And
you're not getting enough back.
Exactly. JCA on Arctic Ice brought up that mistakes with Pavlik can kind of be, and any contract for Pavlik and keeping him around, they have the potential of being bailed out by Hutch being here. You kind of have that backup plan. If things go really south after that 1 year, Hutchinson's still going to be here. Probably. He's an RFA, so he's likely still going to be here. Whereas if you get rid of Kane, he's gone.
Yeah.
You don't have a backup plan. You've probably lost the trade. You lost that situation. Kane's just gone. You can't make up for that anymore. You can't fall back on Kane Jr. being here. So as much as you're hoping your prospects come up, you do just lose Evander Kane. So Joe's 1 for 1, I guess. Joe, good job.
I'll take it.
Round 2 featured the AHL demotion-worthy seasons out of Trouba and Scheifele versus Tobias Enstrom or Jacob Trouba suffering pretty catastrophic or season-ending or just bad injuries for one of the
majority of the season, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and similar to the first matchup, AHL demotion-worthy seasons from Scheifele and Trouba took 70% of the vote. Whew. I believe that was also a Joe pick. I think I agreed with you on that one. Whereas the other side only got 30. So we have two pretty obviously agreed on, or consensus agreed upon choices going up in the second round. There were some interesting comments actually coming out of this debate as well. Just going to pull it up here. Cole McCarthy, a writer for Arctic Ice, he brought up that an injury to either guy means, first of all, or Stewart, he was on the injury side for things for voting. And every injury kind of comes with the potential for irreversible or kind of added up damage occurring, whereas you can't uninjure yourself. You can heal, but there's always that chance that something else is going wrong, or
you hear it all the time. He re-aggravated, this injury. Or
exactly.
It
it's very common for athletes in particular to compensate for an injury by moving in a different way. And doing that actually offsets a lot of things and could force more injuries that aren't related to your previous one kind of coming about. While demotions worthy seasons would obviously suck, he kind of made the argument that their odds are they're more of a hiccup in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. And if that's who the player is, then that's who the player is. But if it's just a hiccup, then fine. I'll take the 1 year hiccup and we'll move on from it, and they'll improve and they'll get better and kind of keep going on. A lot of talk around the demotion-worthy seasons was the panic of a collapse of those two, and just the detriment to the team if those two kind of got sent down, and things would just kind of fall apart and Jets fans would lose their absolute minds. So Joe, let's look up at this first round. There's a second round here with these two. Okay. With the winners, trading Evander Kane and AHL demotion-worthy seasons going head-to-head. Where's your vote at?
My vote is still knock out of the park for trading Evander Kane. I think that beats AHL demotions for sure.
Why is that?
I'm still thinking that, and actually that point, I think it was Cole you said, made a very good point of, it possibly an AHL demotion-worthy seasons from either or both of those, Scheifele or Trouba, could easily be a blip on the radar, or they are who they are, that too. Yeah. But either way, it's a feeling out process, and young careers. If you expand it over hopefully what will be a long career, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
Obviously it sucks in the short term for the Jets, and I agree, and that's why it was on there, and that's why I voted for it in the first place. Mm-hmm. But I still think that the loss in trading Evander Kane is just so much bigger than that's not a blip on the radar. That is.
It's like it was brought up. It's a permanent solution.
It's permanent. Yeah, exactly. So I think the fact that it's that trading Evander Kane is a permanent thing, and an AHL demotion-worthy season is possibly and hopefully a temporary thing, makes the Kane one way worse.
Yeah, I am going to agree with you there. I do think trading Evander Kane, as much as I thought Pavlik was going to win,
you thought he was going to go all the way to the end.
I thought he was going to go all the way to the end. I do think trading Evander Kane would be worse than the AHL demotion-worthy seasons. We brought it up in the last kind of arguments where you're losing that trade. Plain and simple, you're losing it. I think an argument that could go the other way is you are getting something back. Whereas if they have AHL demotion-worthy seasons, and that ends up being who they are, that's just lost. You're not getting anything back. So you could kind of make that argument on both sides, where when you trade Evander Kane, you might not win the trade, but you get a bit more hope at another chance at it almost with him leaving. Whereas if it just ends up being who those two guys are,
sucks.
You're out of luck.
Yeah, you're SOL.
And that's pretty also not very good. One other point that was kind of brought up for the AHL demotion-worthy seasons that could be actually a good thing for that happening is you're sending, and I think Beefy Bro is the name of the guy who brought this up, is...
Great name.
Maybe AHL time would be good for them.
Possibly, yeah.
We, like you said on the last episode, we were talking last year at this time about Scheifele needing time in the AHL to kind of develop that defensive game. I'm still not convinced his defensive game is at all improved. When he got moved up the lineup, got different, easier minutes in a way, that's when he started shining as a player. Maybe getting sent down to the AHL and learning how to play that defensive style against people you can dominate could be a good thing. Maybe that's why he's sent down in the first place, because he plays terribly defensively. So spending time in the AHL and developing yourself as a player could end up as a positive. And not only is it just a little hiccup, but it's a hiccup that leads to a great career. So I'm going to put my vote in with trading Evander Kane. I was as the worst of the two because, again, you are losing him. All those things we brought up before. I don't think Scheifele becomes the kind of player that Kane is. And you have to throw in the fact that Trouba could also learn from the situation and gets him away from Stewart. I feel like you could end up with positives out of the AHL demotions, yes. Whereas trading Evander Kane, the odds of a positive really working out,
they're very low.
Is lower. Yeah, in my opinion. So that's where my pick's going. I think we both consensus on that one. I'm interested to hear what you guys say. Vote on Arctic Ice Hockey again when this gets up there. I'm going to post the articles again. Vote on the polls. Tweet at us. Email us. Let us know what you think is the worst of the two. You don't have to agree with us. We could be completely wrong. You could have more points between the two that we haven't thought of. Want to hear from you guys about this. So let's head back down to round one in the bottom half of the bracket here. We had matchup number 3. where it was losing Michael Frolik to free agency and basically losing him for nothing versus finishing right outside of the playoffs. And another pretty one-sided vote. It was a 60-40 vote. Losing Michael Frolik to free agency won that round.
I found that kind of surprising. I mean, I think I chose the losing Frolik for nothing one, but I'm surprised that it was 60-40. I thought it would be a lot closer.
Why is that? Any specific reason?
No, it just seemed like one of the closer matchups of the ones that we had up there, so I thought it would be closer than 60-40.
All right, we had a couple interesting comments for this as well. Ryder Needham, Ryder N17 on Twitter, if you want to give him a follow. He said he picked losing Frolik because, as realistic as both of these possibilities really are, he felt that retaining Frolik is the one that's more so in the Jets' control as a franchise. Mm-hmm. And I think he kind of, I'm paraphrasing a bit of what he said there. I didn't really want to spiel off on all his whole points. He was kind of supporting that. We brought it up before. It just kind of shows that nothing's really changing. And you need to you don't want to keep compounding your mistakes. He's made the mistakes. Chevy's already made a ton of mistakes. And making more where you're just letting a good young player go is just making things worse. And as much as losing Kane and trading Kane would be a detriment, I'm not saying Frolik isn't a Evander Kane type player, but he's another very good, important player to this team. And just letting him walk for nothing is... It's completely outrageous, and it's just not a good choice. And Tim Bonner, again, we have to have him on this podcast at some point.
Yeah.
Arctic Ice guy as well. He said he picked Frolik because of the whole talent in, talent out tendency that keeps going on with the Jets, where you lose Jokinen but bring in Perreault, where you lose this guy but bring in somebody who's basically the same. It's just getting old. And in my opinion, personally, when you lose Frolik, finding a suitable replacement for him is not going to be easy. A young guy who right now is on a pretty reasonable contract for another year.
And when you talk about talent in, talent out, I'd say he's probably the highest talent in that the Jets have gotten since they've been in Winnipeg.
I don't think you're going to replace that. And as much as finishing outside of the playoffs would suck, I think it's going to happen. I think you can somewhat make that okay if you hold on to the good guys.
Yeah.
And take it as a sign that you just need to move guys out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
So losing Frolik for nothing took that round there. And our final matchup of round one had a core player demanding a trade, taking on extending Kevin Cheveldayoff. I was surprised at this one being as separated as it was. This is kind of where the whole is this really realistic thing I think might have played into it a little bit, but just more so about how dramatic the difference was. 66% of you guys said that a core player demanding a trade would be worse than extending Kevin Cheveldayoff. A lot of the arguments against extending Kevin Cheveldayoff just be like, this would be so stupid that like people would lose their minds, which is very, very true. Most of the interesting points for the trade that were brought up were in regards to the fact that the Jets seem to be getting close. As far as they do seem to be, their core group is not a bad core group of players. It's the supporting roles and the depth of defense and your goaltender that are huge problems. You're getting closer to that point where if you add some of this young talent does turn out to be good. The Ehlers come out to be good. The Scheifele's, Patan ends up being something. Lowry ends up being something. These guys can actually start adding on. If those guys turn out to be the prospects a lot of people are hoping they are, you start looking at a pretty good team. As much as the Thorburn contracts and those kind of guys being around messes things up, you can almost offset that if a lot of these Odells and guys like that and Klingbergs can come in and play good roles. You start seeing a decent team emerging. If Hutchinson steps in, you start seeing a decent team emerging. And losing a lad, it just kind of sends this message where we're done. And that's that. And you start setting things back, and long term it just becomes such an issue. Whereas you extend Chevy, it's more of a where's this team going question, as opposed to
this team's going nowhere.
This team, it might be like, hey, they're going nowhere right now.
Yeah. Whereas
in the immediate future, that doesn't really damage things really because he doesn't make any trades.
Right.
So it might send. It's more of the. It might send a message. It might end up being bad for things. Whereas if you trade a core player,
or a core player demands a trade,
exactly. Yeah. You do trade them and you lose out on your team immediately. You start losing guys and things just really fall apart.
Right.
So I can understand why the core player getting a trade demand is kind of taking the precedence there. So Joe, Round 2, matchup number 2 that we got here. Losing for a league for nothing or a core player demanding a trade. What's worse?
It's actually kind of interesting because the negatives from these are kind of similar. If you think about it, I mean, losing for a league for nothing, you could argue that he's become a core player in this team.
That's very true.
I mean, obviously he's not demanding a trade; he's going for free agency. But
yeah,
and the whole
it's a very similar problem.
Yeah, the whole demand part of it is part of the negative of losing a core player to a trade demand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very similar problem if you look at them. But I'm gonna go with core player trade demand because it's almost like. They have the same negatives, and then the core player trade demand one has like an extra negative to it, where it's like they want to get the F out of here right now. So it's like you lose a good player by losing Frolik, but then you move on. Whereas you lose a good player by losing one of your core players, plus you lose that morale of somebody saying I want to get out of this.
And maybe
city.
Everybody else starts saying I want to get the F out of here.
Exactly. So I think it's got to be worse.
This is a tough choice for me. I think I kind of have to start going... I want to consider the facts that we brought up in the other argument there, where if you lose a player to a trade demand, there is that potential you turn it around to something good. Mm-hmm. That chance is always there. Whereas losing for a league for nothing, you get nothing out of them. It's nothingness. It's back to the trading of Evander Kane. For league's gone for good.
Yeah.
And I think a potential benefit of losing for a league to nothing then... coming back is you might avoid a bad contract. Again, Alan Walsh is involved. You don't really want to start messing with things. It's a tough decision because you could start getting something good from trading your core players. Maybe you do spark that new rebuild. You do just say, okay, you know what? It's not working here. You can tear things down, sell guys off, rally around those draft picks. Again, we haven't brought it up this round, but Connor McDavid being available. Mm-hmm. You start tearing things apart. Maybe you do have that team that's right on the cusp there. A Colorado Avalanche, for example, or a huge kind of hypothetical situation. Let's say the Leafs are once again... Let's take this back a year. Let's say the Leafs are right there, and a core player on the Jets demands a trade. You trade to the Leafs a couple of their first-round draft pick, maybe. Trade them a first-round draft pick for Ladd or Bufflin or something like that. It fills a need there. Let's say the Leafs still collapse. Now you've got 2 first-round picks that would end up being high first-round picks in a draft where Connor McDavid is available. Mm-hmm. That's 2 shots at that lottery to get him for a high overall pick. That could very likely be... Do you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Because then you have the Leafs draft pick and you have the Jets draft pick. Either one of them could win, and then you still have
another
second pick.
One, yeah.
Or a Colorado kind of situation. It could be the same thing this year for Colorado, where they might be right there just because of the pure talents they've got in their roster. But a lot of teams, or a lot of us predicted that Colorado would fall off the face of the earth last year. They could do it very well, just like the Leafs did this year. Mm-hmm. So let's say you do make that trade. As much as an improvement to the team might come by giving them one of our core players, they could still very well collapse because of how overall just problems there are there. And you've got another shot at that high overall pick. Do you get where I'm kind of going with this? Where there could be a lot of positives and a lot of good things out of trading your core player. As much as it does hamper you, you could have good stuff come out of it.
It's almost like you have to, at that point, start fresh.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Arby's been on the podcast with us before where we've said we want them to make that decision, and that could kind of spark that decision happening.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with losing for a league for nothing being worse. They both obviously suck, and I don't want either of them to happen, and as much as I do like the Lad Little for leak line and stuff like that, in either one of these situations, that Lad Little for leak line isn't happening anymore. Could you replace him with Wheeler? Sure, but then you got other stuff going on, so... I'm going to go with losing for a league for nothing for being the worst for the 2, I think.
All right.
Again, that's just me making the decision right now. I might think this through. I might be as big of an idiot as I was in thinking a good year for Pavlik going through.
Yep.
But hey, that's up to you guys. Just like last time, we want to hear from you. Tweet us, #JetStream. Email us, jetstreampodcast@gmail.com. The polls will be back up on Arctic Ice. Comment in there. Neil brought up something to me that I wanted to put on our last one, but I decided to wait for this round. If you guys want to make videos or something of you making your case, just so we can't cut it short like I did with some of these things, take a video of yourself and email it to us. We have a TV right here. You can be featured on the JetStream podcast next week when we have our episode, making your own case as to why you think the way you do. We do want to hear from you guys. One more piece of news before we go. We're done for today. One more piece of news that I kind of want to give up, and you can add this into whatever tweets or emails you do send us. Sometime within the next couple of weeks, it's not guaranteed yet, but hockey guy and stats guru Rob Volman will be joining us. He's going to discuss his new book, the 2014 edition of the Hockey Abstract. If you haven't heard of this book before, I highly recommend you check it out. It kind of breaks down a lot of analytical stuff in very easy understanding terms. If you aren't really sure on analytics, but you want to learn, I recommend you read the 2013 edition. It kind of introduces things a bit more. If you get the concepts, get the 2014 edition. It kind of expands on stuff. Both Joe and I are reading it right now, so we can kind of discuss things with them. So if you have any advanced stats questions, just general hockey play questions, general stuff about hockey you want to know.
This guy knows his stuff. So
he knows his stuff.
Yeah, pick his brain.
So send us your questions, and we'll ask a few of them. We're coming up with some of our own as we're reading his book. So that's a 2014 edition of the Hockey Abstract. I think you said it was on Amazon. I know the 2013 edition is on Amazon for sure.
Both of them are on Amazon, yeah.
So if you want to pick those up and read them and then send us questions, it'll be either our next episode or the episode after that. We have them on. We haven't set anything in stone yet. We're really hoping it does work out, though. So yeah, let us know what you guys think and what questions you want to ask. Get at us with the hashtag JetStream. Tweet us at JetStreamPod. Check out the website, www.jetstreampodcast.com. Like I said, email us, jetstreampodcast@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at THRUBENIUK, freshly blocked by Steve Simmons. Joe's on Twitter at JW_Clark20. Neil's on Twitter at Neil Noonan. He's our NBA guy, so any NBA questions you have, go ahead and ask him. Subscribe, and please give us ratings on iTunes. It's greatly appreciated when you do. We love all you guys whenever you do subscribe and rate us. Check out ArcticIceHockey.com. The top 25 under 25 series is going on. We've got a lot of interesting stuff that we're planning on putting out soon. Jets prospects actually starting to play soon, so check out Arctic Ice Hockey's Twitter account. Tons of great stuff going on. The season's starting soon. School's starting soon. Get us in your morning routine. Tell your friends about us in your morning routine. Oh, by the way, we have stickers.
Yeah.
We do have stickers in now. They're a little small, but they're also pretty cool. So if you do want a set of stickers, get voting. Tweet at us. Tell us you voted, who you voted for. If you send in a video, actually, we will send you stickers, without a doubt. We have, I don't know how many we have. We have a decent amount of them. Each of our little pads has 4. We'll send you a pad if you send us a video. Send us an email if you do want them. Tweet at us if you want them. If you really want to make your case for making them, get people to follow us. Get people to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Talk about us. We want to get our names out there. We want to kind of get a conversation going with all you guys. And the more points of view we've got, the better for us. We love hearing from you guys. That's why we do this. We love kind of interacting with you guys. So let us know if you want to help us spread our brand by putting stickers all over the place.
Yeah.
If you leave a review on iTunes, we're for sure sending you some stickers.
Yeah, that's true. Also that, yeah.
Yeah, leave a review on iTunes, then email us and tell us you did, and we'll go check out your review and we'll send you some stickers. Send us videos of you giving us opinions, and yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Every minute of it is greatly appreciated. Have a good start of September, and if you're sending kids to school, good luck. If you're a teacher, I know some of you guys are teachers, really good luck. Holidays are over. And yeah, go Jets go.